Hey everybody, welcome to Hump Day Hangouts. This is episode number 528. Let's see, this is the first Hump Day Hangouts of 2025. Just like writing checks and dates everywhere, I've got to think about it here for the first month or so while I say it before I get it right. But anyways, all that said, we've got everyone else traveling this time, and I'm actually here. We're going to see the silhouette of Bradley, and we got Chris in his winter getup. So going to say hi to the guys real quick. May take a minute for some responses. I know power might be an issue with Bradley, but I think we're going to make it. So Chris, how you doing today?
It's going to be one of those days.
Yep, there we go. All right, well, Chris, there we go. Chris is alive. Bradley, how you doing? Or rather, how's the outline of Bradley doing?
Well, my silhouette is doing just fine. I'm sitting at a burger bar in Rocky Mount, Virginia, downtown Rocky Mount, Virginia, because I've had power and internet issues for 3 days now. I actually left the campground in my RV, or my RV is still at the campground, because during the Christmas to New Year's holiday, when I came up to Northern Virginia, I apparently didn't winterize my RV properly, and my water heater exploded because it froze, and it basically blew what they call the heat exchanger, which is all the copper tubing that the water runs through the heating elements, and that it froze and just broke that copper open. So I have no water, and I'm waiting on parts to be delivered, the heat exchanger to replace it. And so I had no water when I went back from Christmas holiday. So I ended up going back to my folks' lake house, which is about a 4-hour drive, so that I could get away from the bad weather on top of the mountain, and so that I could have water. And then I came here, and on Sunday we had an ice storm, a freezing rain and ice storm, which is very rare. And it's been 3 days of power on and off, and internet issues because I'm tethering through mobile, and because power keeps going on and off, the mobile networks are overcrowded. It's just been awful for the last 3 days. So I went out of the frying pan and into the fire, so to speak. But I'm here, and I'm trying not to be too loud because there's other people here eating and stuff. But let's get through it. This is the first one of the year. It's a great way to start the new year.
Yeah, right. The obstacle's the way. So here we are. Cheers to that. I don't have a ton of announcements as we're just getting started. I wanted to let people know we've got some really good stuff coming up starting next week. Really want to make sure that you get a hold of that. If you are not getting Semantic Mastery emails, I highly suggest you do that. You can head to semanticmastery.com. You can go to gmbprocess.com. Hop on there. We send a ton of great information. Information from Hump Day Hangouts, other stuff we cover, webinars with other people we have on. And we're going to be talking about growing your agency in 2025, and want to make sure that we get that to you. Bradley's got some great content coming out, and we are going to be sending that out to people starting next week. So I put the link down too in the replay, or rather if you're watching live or if you're watching the replay. We've got the DHA Directory Hybrid Agency. If you're interested in that, you can sign up. All that is just to be notified when it's ready to go, when the next training cohort is going to start, as well as the local SEO toolkit. If you're new to Semantic Mastery, you want to check out some of the stuff we've got. We've got a great free toolkit for you, and you can grab that at semanticmastery.com/toolkit. Cool. So other than that, Bradley, anything else I might be forgetting, or should we just jump into it?
No, I think that's good. The DHA program, we're starting, like you said, phase 1, group 3. So the third group going through the phase 1 program, which is developing the marketing machine, so to speak, the prospecting machine, which is the directory, cold email system, and all of that. And so we're going to be, relaunching that in a couple of weeks, or a week or so, a week and a half, something like that. And then we're going to start training the first week in February. But phase 2. We're going to launch phase 2 now as well. So that's for graduates of phase 1, or for anybody that already has built the infrastructure from the SOPs in phase 1, which any mastermind member can do that. They don't have to go through the DHA program to do it, because we provide the SOPs in the mastermind. So anybody that says that they want to join phase 2, as long as they've got a working directory, cold email system set up, and all that stuff, they can join. But that's the sales and fulfillment side of things. And it's only a 6-week program versus a 12-week program. But that's where the money's made, right? That's where the revenue's generated. It's in the sales side of things. The first phase is about setting up the infrastructure to start generating leads consistently for the agency, for your agency. Phase 2 is all about how to sell the front end services to those leads. And that's where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, right? That's where the revenue is generated. It's sales and fulfillment side of things. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm actually kind of trying to dial that process in now with my own agency. But by the time we start in February, it'll be dialed in so that I can teach that. So anybody that's interested in it, again, just fill out the survey. And I'll be reaching out over the course of the next couple of weeks to schedule calls with anybody that decides that they want to jump on an interview call with me to see if it's a good fit. I don't do any hard sales tactics, just to be clear. It's only so we have a conversation just to make sure it's a good fit, because I only want to bring people into the program that have a very good chance of completing it. Okay. And so I just want to make sure it's a good fit. But just check it out. Other than that, yeah, I can get into questions.
All right, let's do it.
All right. Let me grab the screen, guys, and forgive me for having the lighting's not perfect in here, but next time I'll call the burger bar ahead and make sure they set up some proper lighting.
Gonna say, if somebody, just have somebody shine a flashlight on you from the other side.
So, all right, let me grab the screen, guys, and we'll jump into it. And I'm on a Chromebook, so functionality is not going to be as good as it normally is. So hopefully this will suffice. I'm going to start with Huzaifa. The last time we had a meeting was on the Hump Day Hangouts was on 12/18, so I'm starting on 12/19. Not too many questions, so I think we ought to be able to get through most of these today if I can keep my answers somewhat brief. So good luck. So we'll start with Huzaifa. What's up, buddy? Happy New Year. He says, excuse me, how to build brand authority for LLGs if not building entity assets? Should we have an ID page for them or follow the content mirroring method? Well, that's a good question, but typically what I recommend for brand authority is waiting until you have a GBP or something assigned to a GBP. Like in other words, have an LLG site assigned to a company, a client that has a GBP, because you can build brand authority without a GBP, but it's much more difficult. And the Google Business Profile is an entity validator. That's why you go through a validation or a verification process, because once you do that, it solidifies it as, a local business entity in Google's search algorithm. Right? Does that make sense? And so, you can establish brand authority or start to build brand authority without one, but it's much more difficult. And just to be clear, like I've talked about Huzaifa before on questions that you have asked here at Hump Day Hangouts, is I recommend using the LLG sites only as a sales tool initially, right? So you don't have to worry about building brand authority for all of them. I think you're getting ahead of yourself, over your skis, as they say, right? Because honestly, what I do is I just build the LLG sites in areas. I tell everybody to target low competition areas, but there are times when I build them in areas that aren't low competition areas, just because I know that there's a very good chance that I'm going to land a client in that area, and I want to have something to point to. And so I don't really worry so much about building brand authority for the LLG brand itself, other than just building links to the overall LLG domain, my branded domain, which is done both at the root domain level as well as the subdomain level. Okay. But once you have a website in an area, so an LLG site, local lead generation site in a particular area that is ranking fairly well, right, for at least a portion of the keywords, a portion of the areas that you're targeting, that's all that is needed to use that now as a sales tool. You understand, that's all that's needed. It doesn't have to be ranked 100%. It doesn't have to be generating a ton of leads. It's something that you can point to when you're pitching your services to a company in the area. And you can still monetize it. Like I've talked about this before, but LLG sites can be monetized either directly or indirectly. A direct monetization method would be renting it out, so like rank and rent, or pay per lead, or revenue share, or something like that. Or an indirect monetization method, which is to use it as a sales tool and then just assign any of the leads that are generated from that site to the company that you end up selling your SEO services to, or your marketing services to, in that area. And so I don't really care about building brand authority for the LLG brand in and of itself, other than just building links to it and building domain authority. And I don't mean Moz's domain authority, although that will go up too. I just mean overall backlink profile authority to the root domain and all of its subdomains. And then once we have a client in a particular area, depending on what the arrangement of that engagement is, I may just rebrand the LLG site for them, or there's an additional fee that goes into that, because then it's not my asset anymore. Or I will just assign any of the leads to them that come from that. But at that point, once I have a paying client for a particular area where I have an LLG site, then that's where I'll go in and I'll start doing things like content mirroring, right? Building out branded and supporting assets for that specific location, even if it doesn't have a GBP. And that's okay, you can do that. But I don't want to go through spending extra time, effort, resources, money, etc., on building all that stuff out until I've monetized it. Because what's the point, right? You could go through spending money, time, effort, resources, etc., on building out an LLG brand in a particular location, and then you never end up monetizing it. And so, that's a waste of effort. Why not just wait until it's monetized? So the least amount of effort possible is what you should be doing up front, right? The minimum viable product, so to speak, for just enough to be able to point to it to improve your sales or your closing ratio, right? And then from there, once you have money coming in from selling marketing services to a company in the area where you had that site, then you can invest a little bit of resources into building out additional assets. And guess who's paying for it at that point? Your client, not you. That's why I don't recommend doing that until you have a paying client in a particular location. I don't do it. I don't spend time and money on building additional assets for LLG brands until I have a client in the area. And that's just because, again, otherwise you end up spending too much time and resources on stuff that may not end up getting monetized. So focus on the sales side of things. And all you need for that is the LLG site to be partially ranked for some of the search queries in some of the locations that are being targeted. That's it. Okay. Good question. Moving on. Colton says, could developing citation building strategies for local lead generation sites be effective? For instance, could temporarily using an office building address in a target city help establish local presence and enhance local SEO? Possibly, but here's the problem, Colton. What happens when you end up assigning that site to a specific location, right? If you assign it, right, then that's going to cause NAP discrepancies from what was currently built from the initial kind of temporary location that you assign to it, and then what it has to be converted to once you actually have a paying client. Again, depending on how you monetize the site, you can either assign it entirely to another company, and then you would want to change some of the data of that site, or you could just assign any of the leads that were generated from that and keep it under your LLG brand. And so maybe, but the problem is, unless you're planning on getting a GBP, what's the point? Like, you know what I'm saying? And I don't recommend. That's the whole reason why I have the LLG sites to begin with, is so that we don't need GBPs. We do it with organic assets only, okay? Because it's very difficult to verify GBPs. Look, if you have a way and you can verify Google Business Profiles, if you know a way to do it consistently and they stick and they don't get suspended arbitrarily at some point within a couple of months, by all means, yeah, build a GBP for every damn one of your LLG sites if you can. I don't do that unless I already have GBPs in a location. And then I would, like, I actually just had 2 of them in the last week rebranded from Tree Care HQ local sites to Felling Pro brands. So 2 of them that I've done in the last week, because I already had GBPs just under a different brand name in those locations. But for new LLG sites that I create in new locations, I don't worry about GBPs. I don't worry about citations. I don't worry about none of that. All I do is build the site, wait for it to start to rank. I build some links to it if needed. But once some of the pages start to rank in the top 3 to 5, the top 5 positions for some of the locations we're targeting, then that's all that is needed to now you point to that and use that when I'm pitching my services to companies in that area. That's it. Right. And so if you have the ability to do it, by all means, yes, do it. But I don't, because it's very difficult to get GBPs anyways. Even if you can verify them, they're likely to get suspended if it's not a real valid business location. So why bother with building citations to an LLG site until and unless you have an actual client with a verifiable GBP that you can always re-verify if needed. You understand? That's the whole point of the LLG sites, guys, is to not have to deal with that shit. That's why I started developing it, okay? So that we can avoid the GBP stuff until you land a client in that area, and then they should have a verifiable Google Business location, essentially, that they can re-verify or reinstate if needed, okay? Next is, how can I fix the issue of my cold emails not landing in inboxes of Yahoo, Outlook, and Hotmail while maintaining nearly 100% inboxing for Gmail? My sending domain score is 9.3 out of 10. On Mail Tester, yet I'm experiencing 0% inboxing rate with these providers. Should I continue warming up the emails, or is there an approach that I should take to resolve that? This is a great question. I don't know, Colton. I typically don't worry about it. we try to get our spam. By the way, use multiple mail testers. Don't just use mail-tester. Use other mail testing and spam scoring type of services so that you can identify other potential fixes. Personally, I don't really bother with it. All I do is make sure that we have our warmed emails to instantly, just like the SOPs that we provide show. And then we just send out to the list. If it goes to an Outlook or a Hotmail or something like that it doesn't inbox, then so be it. I don't bother with it. There's so many other contacts that are going to receive the emails that I just don't even sweat it. Sorry, I can't help you with that. We are going to have Attaché, who is from Hyperkey, which is the appointment setting company that I've been using for my white label agency, to do cold outreach period. But it's mostly email, but they also do some social media stuff. He's going to be coming on and doing another presentation to our audience at some point about cold email services that he's setting up as a done-for-you cold email infrastructure setup and management service. And so we're going to be talking about cold email stuff with him at that time. And he is way better at it than I am. And so that would be a great question for us to ask on that webinar, if that makes sense. Again, like I said, I personally don't mess with it so much. Don't worry about it, because I know that we do get replies from our cold email from Yahoo and Outlook and Hotmail. And I understand that some of the testers may show that they're going into the spam folder, but some of them still get through. And I don't know why. I honestly can't answer that. I'm not an email marketing expert. I just know that for cold email, what works, because I've been doing it for 4 years. And like I said, I typically don't really worry about those other providers, because they end up getting through anyways. Not all of them, sure. I'm sure many of them are in spam, but it's not enough to really cause a problem, because we get plenty of inbound replies from our cold email outreach anyway. That's a good question, though. Sorry, I don't have a better answer. Next one is from Colton as well. He said, do you upload service area businesses or only physical locations to your directory? Both. He said, I'm not sure if I should focus my cold emailing efforts solely on physical locations for now, or target both physical locations and the service area businesses. What would be the best approach? Both. I do both because in the tree service industry, about half of the GBPs don't have public street addresses. And so I would be limiting my exposure or my potential market by half if I didn't target service area businesses without public street addresses. So why limit it to one or the other? Do both, right? It creates a little bit of a challenge when creating listings, but just so you guys know, I talk about this in our mastermind. I don't add directory or companies to the directory until and unless they've replied to my cold email. Initially, when I first created the directory, and I recommend to students, when you first create a directory, that you populate the directory with 2 or 3 states worth of companies in the industry that you've selected. But that's just to seed the directory site with content, so that it indexes, Google understands what the site's about, all that kind of stuff. After that, I don't recommend that you add any directory listings to the site until and unless they've replied to your cold outreach. We changed that in my former partner, Harry, who was no longer a partner of mine at Tree Care HQ. He actually was the one that kind of led me to that, to change that strategy. Because before, I was always adding contacts that we would scrape to the directory, then we would reach out to them via cold email. So there were, hundreds of directory listings on the site for contacts that I could never get a hold of, that never replied to the cold email sequences. And so Harry was one that said, well, you've got enough seed content on the site. Why don't you only, we still scrape contact lists with like Google Maps Scraper from Outscraper, but we just do the cold email now without creating the directory listings. In other words, we don't upload the contact list and create basic unoptimized listings anymore. We just create the contact list, do all the cleaning and filtering and sorting and all that stuff, and then we do our cold email campaign, and we only add directory listings when a cold email receives a reply, or if it's a user-submitted listing. That's it. That way we know that the companies that are added to the directory are companies that we have direct communication with somebody at the company. Does that make sense? And that keeps the directory clean. So initially, like I said, you can add some seed content, which I recommend everybody does that. But after you have that initial seed content on the site, only focus in on positive replies that get added to the directory, and that keeps it very high quality, right? Does that make sense? That way you don't have a lot of listings on the site that are businesses that don't answer the phone or have gone out of business or whatever. You see what I'm saying? So anyway, I do both service area businesses and public street addresses both, because otherwise, but only to those that reply to my cold. Okay, Blake says, can you touch on how you do topic and entity breakdown for house painting? I tried to mimic your tree maintenance, etc., to find the most coverage, but it is proving to be difficult. Yes, because Blake, that is one of those very difficult topics, I should say, or industries where it doesn't fit neatly into that kind of category and topic model. I've talked about this before, but there's a few industries that are like that. One of them is house painters, because if you do the Wikipedia entity research for house painting, it's house painter and decorator, I think, is the Wikipedia entity for that. It's not a good one. The Google business category is painter, right? Not painting, painter. That is there is both of those categories, by the way. There's painting and painter. Painting, from what I understand, is like literally like an art, like a point of interest, right? Like a painting, a point of interest or something. That's what painting is. Painter is somebody that does painting, right? Like house painters, commercial painters, etc. Painting contractor, basically. That's what a painter is in the Google business categories. But as far as topic research, I think it's house painter and decorator is the Wikipedia entity for that, and that's it. There's not much of that. There's painting contractor. You could play around and try to create your own topic out of different entities, which is what how Google business categories were created. But like I said, house painters is one of those those industries that doesn't fit nicely or neatly into that kind of model. But there's a few others like that too. Like look at water damage restoration, which that actually has a Wikipedia entity, water damage. But then there's fire damage restoration, smoke damage restoration, that type of stuff, which all kind of falls under building restoration. And that's another one of those industries that doesn't fit neatly into this model. Another one is the We Buy Houses crew, like the quick turn real estate companies or businesses. That's also another one that doesn't fit real nicely into this. The best Google business category for that industry is real estate consultant. And that's not really descriptive enough. It's not a great category. And then if you look in Wikipedia, there's cash offer for house, or cash offer, I think it is the Wikipedia entity, and there's flipping. But if you read the flipping Wikipedia entity or topic, it's got kind of a negative connotation, almost like it's illegal, which it's not. I'm sure you can do flipping illegally. There's ways to do it illegally, but if done properly, it's not illegal. But there's cash offer, flipping. There's a few other ones that have come in that, again, it just doesn't fit real neatly. And unfortunately, house painting is one of those. And I don't know why. I don't know why they don't have better Google business categories for that and better Wikipedia topics for that, but they don't. So unfortunately, this is one of those things that it doesn't always work nicely if the Google business categories and topics aren't proper. And house painting is one of those. Good question. Zypha says, for one of my sites, when I do a brand search, the site doesn't come up in SERP and move the branded assets due and GDP. I was thinking it might be due to the December core update. Do you want to see if your site's affected and any idea how to fix things? Well, I mean, if you do a brand search, well, try a domain search. So try to root domain search, or if it's a subdomain site that you're looking for, do a search for just the domain. So go to Google and search for just the root domain or the subdomain, whichever it is. So like semanticmastery.com, you just go to Google and search semanticmastery.com. No protocol, nothing. Just put the domain in and see if the home page of the domain search shows up in the #1 position, then there's not an algorithmic penalty applied. At least it's likely that there's not. If you do a domain search, and you do not see the domain show up, the home page of the domain show up in the #1 position, then it is an indication that there's an algorithmic penalty applied against the domain. Now, doing a brand search, that's different than a domain search, right? If the domain is strong enough and has been associated with the brand properly, then when you do a brand search, the homepage should show in the #1 position. But if the association was not strong enough, then it can pull up other branded or supporting assets that are referencing the brand name that are stronger. And so that can happen. That's why it's important to have, #1, the brand name as the leading optimization you lead with the brand name on the homepage of the branded site, period. And that's why I've been preaching about this for months, if not well over a year now, to everybody that will listen, because I see all the time that SEOs are still optimizing the homepage of their local business sites for keywords and not for the brand name. I can't tell you how many audits I've done recently where the homepage doesn't even mention the brand name in the SEO title or the H1. What the hell? So you have to have the homepage of the site, whether it's a subdomain or root domain, doesn't matter. The homepage of the site should be optimized for the brand. First and foremost, that should be the primary optimization point, is the brand. And if that's not done properly, then other assets can outrank the brand search. And then other SEOs like me can come in and optimize an external page for the brand and outrank the brand itself, right? And then poach traffic away from the actual company and send that traffic to my clients or to lead gen assets. And that's something that we do, right? I've even done some training in the mastermind recently about using CTRify to do brand jacking. It's super easy to do. And it works, by the way. I could demonstrate that. Let me just see. Are you guys seeing my screen? I didn't even ask. I'm hoping you are.
Oh, yeah.
You are seeing my screen? Okay. Because it's difficult. I'm on a Chromebook. But let me just show you guys real quick. If you take a look at this, is just a test that I started to do, I don't know, a couple of months ago. And all I did was create the site and did nothing else. I didn't build any links to it. I didn't do anything but create the site with CTRify, which is stupid easy to create a site. All I had to do was buy the domain, plug the keyword in, and hit go. And then once it was built, I sent the site in for indexing, and that's it. But this is a company that gets a very high branded search query. Even in Google Trends, by the way, this is a whole, I don't know how much I should share on this right now. Fuck it, it's a new year. Let me go ahead and do this just for the sake of it. This is a great question. So let's go ahead and talk about this. Trends.google.com. Go to trends, guys. This is something you all can do. And this is getting to Huzaif's question. So his question is, he's got a domain that is, when he does a brand search, is not showing up. It's being outranked by other assets. That's because the association from the domain to the brand has not been done properly. That can be fixed through schema, through proper HTML markup of the homepage, right? With proper optimization of the homepage with proper HTML usage, heading tags, etc. And then also links with brand anchors, also schema. All of those things can associate the brand with the domain, right? But what I'm saying is, if you don't do that properly, then people like me come in behind and can actually poach traffic away from brand searches because you're not optimized for your brand properly. And I'm getting to a point here because this is also an opportunity for us as SEOs to go in behind other SEOs that don't know what they're doing when it comes to local search in today's current environment. And you can poach traffic away from the companies and areas that are doing the most advertising. If you think about it, what causes local consumers to do branded search and clicks? In other words, they search for a company by name instead of a generic search key. It's advertising. That's what does it, right? Companies that are spending money on a lot of money on advertising in their local market are the companies that get the most branded search and clicks. So if they're spending money on advertising and getting their name out there, and it's causing local consumers to go to Google and search for the company by name and then click through to the website, the GDP, whatever, then if they're not optimized for that brand name, then we can come in behind them and outrank them very easily with very little effort. And most SEOs that I know are not optimizing for brand, for local search queries. They're still optimizing for queries, which is ridiculous in today's current environment. So let me give you an example. Here we are in Google Trends. I'm going to go search for tree service. In my industry, most tree service companies have the name or the word tree service in their company name, or tree care, or tree removal, or something like that. So I'm just going to go with the very broad general tree service keyword, as you can see here. Now, I want to look at the past 12 months of data, and then I'm going to go put this to just the state of Virginia, because that's where I am currently, and I want to show you something. All right, so this is showing now search interest for the search query tree service in the state of Virginia for the past 12 months. And if we scroll down here, what do we see here, guys? So under here, take a look at this. Rising means since over the time frame selected, which in this case is 12 months, there was a significant increase in search interest for these keywords. There's one of 8 here. If we go in, that's interesting. I wonder why just a minute ago, or just last week I saw Patriot Tree Service, but that's okay. We'll look at top. Here's the top related queries. And we're going to see if we can find it in here now because it was here last week, which is interesting. I'm not seeing it right now. All right, let's go back to 5 years, or actually 90 days. Maybe it was 90 days. I might have been looking at 90 days. You can do 90 days, 12 months. Play around with your time frame. But what we're looking at is rising under here, and we're going to see Patriot Tree Service right there. Okay, you see that? So that means, do you understand what just happened? We just changed the time frame from 12 months initially to 90 days. So what this is saying, in the last 90 days, there has been a significant increase in these search queries, search interest. In other words, there's been a significant increase. So these are all potentially companies that I could jack traffic from. In other words, poach traffic away from and send to client sites. And if we go to page 2, you can see Patriot Tree Service had a 2,500% increase in search interest in the last 90 days, right, in the state of Virginia. Okay, so Patriot Tree Service has 2 locations. There's one in Winchester, Virginia, and then there's one in West Virginia, like Martinsburg, which is right on the other side of the Virginia line, West Virginia line. They're very close. It might even be that they only have 1 location, but they're big in, I think it's Martinsburg, West Virginia, and Winchester, Virginia. And I'm only pointing that out because of what I started to show you here, which is this. So we see from, oh, that was supposed to be the, God damn it, try that one more time. Okay, so now what I'm showing you here is a brand search. It does pop a knowledge panel on the homepage for the company website, but take a look at this, guys. I'm in the number 3 position for a CTRify site that I built, like literally by just buying a domain, submitting it to CTRify with a specific query to have it. AI built this site for me. I didn't have to do a goddamn thing. And then all I did is, once the site was built, all I did was come in and just optimize the homepage SEO metadata. That's it. That's all that I did. I haven't done a damn thing of this, not built any links to it, not anything. And for a brand search, look at this. We're ranking number 3. So imagine if I spent a little bit of time building some links to this and kind of optimizing the pages a little bit better, doing some better internal linking on the site. Just if I took 30 minutes to an hour and spent a little bit of time kind of optimizing the site a little bit better, rearranging some of the internal links and built some links to it, it is likely that I could end up outranking this company. And here's why. Let me just give you an example. I want you guys to see something. If we copy this company name to this homepage of the website for this brand, which gets a lot of brand searches as shown specifically in Google Trends. If we go take a look at this in Chrome, where I have a SEO Pro extension, look at why this is not ranked, why I think I can outrank them. Do you see their company name in any of the heading tags? There's some H2s down here somewhere that have Patriot Tree Service, but the SEO title does not have their brand name in it. The H1 does not have their brand name in it. The first time their brand name appears, as far as I can tell, is all the way down here in an H2 on the page. And so when I saw this, when I was doing some research in the local area, and I saw Patriot Tree Service, and I have a GBP in Winchester and a GBP in Martinsburg, West Virginia, and they come up for both of those searches. So I said, well, son of a bitch, let me take a look and see how is their homepage optimized. And when I saw this, and I saw that they didn't have in the SEO title their brand name even mentioned, they didn't have it in their H1, then I said, I can likely outrank this company with very little effort. And so I again, as a test, it was probably 5 or 6 weeks ago, all I did was submit this domain, Patriot Tree Nova, which Northern Virginia is the official entity, regional entity for the area that contains that location, Winchester, Virginia. And again, look at the results, guys. You see, when I add the location modifier, it's the number 3 position. So just one, like the only, my point is, with a little bit of effort, I could probably outrank their main website, right? And so that goes back to what I was saying, is it's about entity association. Do you think they're associating their entity, their brand, with these service and these keywords? They're not, because it's a missed opportunity. Look at the SEO title. It doesn't even mention their brand. Neither does the H1. So that's what I was getting at with Huzaifa's question, guys, is that you can, it's all about entity association. So if you can do that through leading with the brand name on the homepage of the domain, whether it's a root domain or a subdomain, the homepage of the site should lead with the brand. You can also do it with schema. You can do it with backlinks, right? Supporting assets, all of that. right? You always want to link back to that main homepage with brand anchor or a compound anchor, which is a brand plus something, right? That's a good question. Moving on. James says, when using entity variants for heading diversity, is it important to pick the terms that have search volume or just spray them random? It doesn't matter. Guys, do you understand that when you're looking at search volume, you're looking at individual search queries? But when you're optimizing for categories or topics, which is entity-based optimization, you're optimizing for the topic, which is all the search queries associated with that topic. So it's not about optimizing for a particular version, because when you optimize for the category or the topic, which is entity-based SEO, you're optimizing for all of the queries that are associated with that topic or category. So it doesn't matter. You get it? They're all associated with that topic, so they're all relevant. It doesn't matter what the search queries are, because it's a total accumulation of traffic or search volume for all the queries that are associated with that topic. So just pick them. It doesn't matter. Just use variants that are official entity variants is what I recommend. Next. Hi, Brad. Hope you had a good Christmas. Any plans to make a release Battle Plan 5 in the future? Yes. As a matter of fact, I was supposed to be working on that over the Christmas holiday, and I didn't. But I'm hoping to get some time this month to work on that. We are going to be re-releasing the Battle Plan 100% updated and current. So yes, we are going to re-release that, but I was hoping to get that done over the Christmas holiday, and I didn't. So I'll try to get it done sometime this month. Brian's up next. He says, when building links, is it important to spread the links among all different URL variations that they show in Majestic for the 4 areas, root, subdomain, path, and URL? Is this more natural, or does it really? I don't think it matters at all, to be honest with you. I don't think it matters at all. Years ago, I used to do that with like YouTube videos and stuff. When I'm building links to YouTube videos, use all different variants of the URL. When it comes to building links to a main money site, whatever the current version of the URL is typically what I build links to. Because remember, over time, URLs can change, like the protocol. Remember, there used to be HTTP, and then it went to HTTPS, right? When there's an SSL certificate, sometimes there's www, sometimes there's not. Whatever the most current version of the URL is when you place the link is what I recommend that you link to. There may be some reason to do variations of it, but I don't see the need of it. Personally, I don't bother. We just link to what the current version of the URL is. Does topical category backlinks in Majestic trump geographical backlinks? Because I'm looking at no, it doesn't. No. Remember, there's a reason to build links with topical. Links with topical relevance mainly influence organic ranking, but they do influence maps ranking too, just not as much. Same thing with geographic links, or links with local relevance. Geographic links influence maps ranking mainly, but also influence organic ranking. And if you can get a really strong link from a local business, whether it's in the appropriate topical category or not, that can be like a kill shot, so to speak. Like, in other words, it can be one of the best links that you can possibly get. A locally relevant link that is also topically relevant, that is by far especially if it's a strong local link that is both topically relevant and it has geographic relevance, which just means it's coming from another local source. That is the best link you can get. But a very strong geographic link without proper topical relevance still, in my opinion, trumps, as you put it, or is better, stronger than a topical link only with no geographic relevance. Like when it comes to a local project. Like, in other words, because I've seen in some cases where a top ranked competitor, like if you look at their backlink profile, they really have no reason that they should be ranking. And there's usually one of two reasons for that. One of the primary reasons is usually they're doing a lot of offline advertising, which I just talked about a few moments ago, which causes a lot of branded search and clicks. And that can cause a local business competitor to rank really well, even if they have terrible other SEO metrics, because the branded search and click signals is what is ranking there. But then I've also seen that where we haven't been able to determine, or I talked to a client or an agency that manages a client in an area, and they say, well, no, they're not doing advertising, offline advertising. But in their backlink profile, I see a very strong geographic link or link with local location relevance. And so that is, I know that can be a very strong ranking signal in local search. And that can influence organic ranking too. Maps, I mean, it's more of a maps thing, but it can influence organic ranking too. So I think the best links you can possibly get are local links. If you can get local links with topical relevance, great. But if you can only get local links that aren't topically relevant, then that's why I recommend mixing topical links in too, so that you're hitting both, right? You're hitting the geographic signals and the topical signals. You might need two different link sources to do it, but that's what we do with semantic links, because we can do it at scale, right? We can build topical links and we can build geographic links. It's difficult to do both with one link, right? Sometimes you get lucky, but it's kind of rare, right? So to answer your question, if it's a really strong local link, you said Arts Music Trust Flow 37, yeah, but again, that's a good link, man. Even if it's not the appropriate topical category, it's a good link because the trust flow value is high. It's coming from probably a well-established local business, and so there's a lot of authority transferring from that link, even if it's not the appropriate category. Good question. P says, where do I place the local relevant backlinks? I'm not sure I understand what you mean. Are you talking about what do you target URLs? Do you point them at? Or where do you publish content for local links? I'm not sure what the question is, so let me answer it both ways. If you're talking about target URLs, then you can link to the main website. You can link to the GPP. The ID page, usually at tier 1, that's what we do. At tier 1, we do an anchor text link to the money site, an anchor text link to the ID page, and then a Google Map embed. Okay. But also geographic links are great as tier 2 links, which is only one link. You only need one link then per post as tier 2 links that can be, think about using geographic links as tier 2 links to power up an ID page, or power up a G site, or a branded or supporting asset, right? Any of those things would be relevant in my opinion. Building geographically relevant links to citations, especially citations that do follow links to the money site or to the website that's listed in the citation. So business directory listings, right? Those are all power. The ID page, especially, that's why I always recommend using geographic links for things like ID pages and stuff, is because the ID page becomes a hub where you reference all of the page URLs in Google's index that have accurate information published about the business. So pushing geographic link equity into an ID page for a local business is going to help to kind of power up, so to speak, all of the branded and supporting assets that you collect and add to the ID page from one centralized location. So you can lower your requirements for link building and your budget needed in order to build links if you reference all of those page URLs in the ID page and then just use the ID page as the primary link building target. So I love the ID page for that stuff. But so locally relevant backlinks, again, point them either at the money site, Google Business Profile ID page, or branded and supporting branded and supporting assets, tier 1 assets. So you use them as tier 2 links, if that's clear. Right? As far as where would you publish content for it to be a locally relevant backlink, any sort of local website or local source, like something that's locally relevant. Talk about this before, but like, for example, a geographic link, an example of that would be a link that if a company were to join their local chamber of commerce and get a member, get listed in the member directory, that link back from the Chamber of Commerce member directory has geographic significance because Google understands that that's coming from a local association, institution, organization, etc. That's in the same general physical area. Doing link exchanges with other vendors or companies in the area, sponsoring little leagues, charities, churches, schools, things like that, and getting links back from them in the same local area, that's all going to help you. Those are all great geographic links. The way that we do it, it's semantic links so that we can do it at scale, because a lot of those other methods that I just described requires an outreach process, and that's difficult to do. It's hard to do at scale, right? If you can get your clients to assist in doing outreach through like business networking events and stuff like that, they could secure a lot of local links and do link exchanges with other businesses in their local area, and that's great. But good luck trying to get your local business client to assist in the link building. It's very, very difficult to do. So that's why we developed the strategy of going out and hunting down expired domains that already had locally relevant link profiles, and then we just we build those domains back up with content relevant to the same topical categories they were prior to the domain expiry. And then we just do a block quote insertion into one of those posts on the site that just says, that way we're not publishing a new article, so like a new guest post on a blog that isn't relevant to what we're linking to. Like, in other words, think about, let me give you an example. No, I won't go into it because I'm on a Chromebook. I don't have all those tabs open. But like in Louisville Felling Pro, for example, you know, we've got a Kentucky Music and Bourbon Experience.com blog is one of the domains that we found. Kentucky Music and Bourbon.com, maybe? No, it must be, maybe it's Kentucky Music and Bourbon Experience.com. Anyways, I don't have that spreadsheet open to show you, but I would show you guys an example of what I mean. For a local blog link, the way that we do it is we populate the domain that we found that had locally relevant backlinks already pointing to it. We buy the domain, we then repopulate the domain with content relevant to whatever topical category it was previously, so that all the backlinks remain valid. And then we just go into some random post and we insert a block quote at the bottom of the post that says, the team at our blog would like to thank company name for their support. If you need products or services in city or town, contact this company. And we got our 2 anchor text links, one to the money site, one to the ID page, and then we list name, address, phone number, and website. So we get a citation, like literally a citation in the geographic blog post. And then we do a Google map embed underneath that. That's how we do it. Because it's not, remember, we're not going to go into like the Kentucky Music and Bourbon Experience.com site and publish a post about tree service. That wouldn't make any sense. So instead, we just insert a block quote that says, hey, our blog would like to thank this company for their support. And they reference name, address, phone number, website, map embed, all that. Okay. So that's it. There's what do you point them at and where do you place them? All right. Only a few more, guys. I think we're going to make it today. We've got 13 more minutes too. James says, hope you are well. Can you recommend any decent link indexing services? Many thanks. Yeah, I use 2. Well, 3 really. They're all listed here as a matter of fact. Let me show you. Right there. Index. I use booster pages for RSS feed indexing. So like if you've got a blog with an RSS feed, this is a great service for automatic, like I use it as an indexer, that's it. That's not how it was sold by Damon Nelson. He sold it as a link building service. I don't consider it a link building service. I consider it an indexing service. Excuse me. And you can feed URLs to be indexed via RSS. So I set that up for blogs. Once I publish a blog, I take the RSS feed from the blog and I submit it to booster pages, and that's it. That's an automatic indexer. I don't have to touch it ever again. I just publish posts and they automatically go out across the booster pages network. Another one that I use consistently is speed-links.net. If you're going to buy this one, you want to use the VIP service for indexing, not the regular plans. You want to use the VIP plans. So I use this one a lot, and then there's one other one I use, which is Omega Indexer. Let's see if I can get back over there. And Omega Indexer, this is also a good one. It's very inexpensive, and I like this one because it's pay as you go. You can have a monthly plan, but you can also just buy credits. This one has monthly plans. I've got, I think, three subscriptions for this one. I don't know. Anyways, we use these 2 the most. And then booster pages for blogs. And then lastly, there's another one that's owned by the same company as Omega Indexer. Try this again. It's this one. This is a web crawling service. This is not an indexing service, but it's called CoLinkry, and it's the same company as Omega Indexer. Guys, do you understand that the links don't have to be indexed to produce a result? They just need to be crawled. Certainly, links that are indexed typically provide a better result, but do you understand that not all page URLs that contain a contextual link pointing to whatever assets we're trying to rank need to be indexed for them to provide SEO benefit. They just need to be crawled. I've done a lot of testing with this. Like even de-indexed sites can produce a positive ranking effect. I'm not saying you should be building links for de-indexed sites, by the way. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it can still produce a positive ranking benefit because of the link equity. And so I'm just saying that, CoLinkry is a very inexpensive way. If you've got a lot of mass link indexing that you're trying to do, this is a great service because it's so much cheaper than indexing services. Look how many links you can submit per month for $49. And so things like if those of you guys that are doing like cloud stacks, which have dozens of pages in the stack, I don't do those. What I call a cloud stack is a cloud page with 2 semantic links pointing to it. That's what I call a cloud stack. But a lot of people that do mass page kind of cloud stacks or mass page sites or use link building tools and do mass spam or high volume spam links and kind of stuff like that, CoLinkry is a great service for that because it'll get them crawled. It doesn't mean they're going to index, but as long as Google's aware of it, it can produce a benefit, right? But speedlinks-net, Omega Indexer, CoLinkry, and in booster pages for any blogs that have an RSS feed. Those are the ones that I use. Good question. Alex says, hey, Bradley, I changed the county name in my LLG site logo with the target city's name across the site, and the positions seem to have gone down by 3 to 4 pages. After that change, could changing the logo have cost us? Maybe. One way to find out is change it back and then give it 2 or 3 weeks. Like change it back, then go resubmit the pages for Google to recrawl via Search Console, preferably, or just go visit the site. Let me give you an example. I'll use this one. Yeah. This is one of the ones that I just talked about a moment ago that I finally got the GBP rebranded. I don't know if some of you guys probably remember this, but this used to be Tree Care HQ Charlottesville. And I even built this Albemarle Felling Pro site and included the Tree Care HQ Charlottesville GBP into the site. And I finally, just in the last week, I got this rebranded now to Albemarle Felling Pro. So the GBP is now rebranded for this. But anyway, why I was bringing this up is because if you just go visit a site and you use the link gopher extension in Chrome or Firefox, either one, this is called link gopher. You can just say extract all links and you can get your links right there. And depending on how you have your internal links done, you can do that from, by the way, if you have an HTML sitemap and you go visit the sitemap and then use link gopher, it'll extract all the links from the sitemap. And I just bring that up because if you change the logo back to whatever it was before, then I would go extract all the page URLs and then go submit them to indexers or whatever to get them pinged and recrawled by Google, right? So that Google's aware of that change and then see, just give it 2 weeks or so and see, does it improve the results? Like by changing the location modifier in the logo back, does it bring it back to where it was previously? Because again, there was also, guys, remember at the end of October, the third week of December, the third week in December was the Google spam update. It wasn't a link spam update, it was a spam update, which means an on-page update. We've had a lot of members complain about getting hit with that. But if you've done any research about that spam update at the end of December, there's no rhyme or reason that so far that is like, there's a lot of sites that got hit that shouldn't have been hit. So we've had some LLG members of our community that are building LLG sites get hit. And I'm telling them, I don't think it's anything that they did wrong. It's just, it appears that there's some randomness to that algorithm update that has caused, unintended consequences for sites that didn't deserve it, while other sites that should have been hit saw a ranking boost. My guess is, just like most of Google's algorithm updates, is Google will dial it back and dial it in to where it will resolve a lot of these issues. You just have to be patient. So I don't know, Alex, maybe you got hit maybe when you made that name change to the logo, the alt text change, was maybe that occurred around the same time that the spam update occurred. So it might be that you're chasing a ghost because it had nothing to do with that. But the only way to determine that is to change it back and see, does it, after you get those pages recrawled, does it create a performance gain? Does it make no change at all? Or does it drop even lower? And then you'll have your answer, so to speak. Right? So again, guys, when there's a major algorithm update like the spam update was, any changes that you made during or around that time, you have no idea whether the changes that you made caused that ranking fluctuation, or if it was the algorithm update. There's no way for you to tell unless you test again to determine, was it the algorithm update or was it the change that I made, right? There's no way to determine that without testing, that I know of anyway. Keith says, Happy New Year, keep up the great work. Google Cloud Storage or Firebase Hosting for cloud pages or both, thanks in advance. I've never used Firebase Hosting, but I have used Google Cloud Storage, so I can't answer that question. I have no idea. I would do some testing with it if I were you and determine. Build the same exact cloud page on both of them, submit both of them for indexing, and then see if one outranks the other, right? That's what I would do. I mean, it might be, you might want to use both all the time. I don't know. I've just not done Firebase Hosting for cloud pages yet, but I have used Google Cloud Storage. Okay, guys. We got one coming from YouTube that says, are there any footprints to be concerned with high-level websites? Thanks for the great video. I have a question about PBN networks. My question is, if I will create probably 50 sites, and I host them inside the same host, but connect them to different CloudFlare accounts and name servers so Google cannot understand that all of them managed by me? Or should I also keep them hosting them on different IPs? Well, with CloudFlare, each time you use another Cloudflare account, you typically are going to get, look at my battery's dying. You typically are going to get a different set of name servers, and it's a different IP range. There's ranges of IPs that are associated with the Cloudflare accounts. And so usually when you get a different name server, it's going to be a different IP range. But I do recommend that you do a combination of all of those things, where you mix up. You can use the same host, but use multiple Cloudflare accounts, and that can be a percentage of your domains. But then I would also have other domains that are hosted on various other virtual private servers, et cetera, so that you get a lot of diversity between IPs, name servers, all of that kind of stuff, data centers, locations, all of that stuff. And you can do that very easily with services like CloudBoss. Okay, it's best if you can kind of separate things out if possible. All right, guys, my battery's going to die, and it looks like we're at the end of the questions, except for one that I'm going to miss just because, again, my battery's about to die. So, Adam, is there anything I need to cover?
No, I think we can leave it. I didn't hear. Sorry, I was looking up something. But did you answer how many sites can you put inside of Go High Level?
It's unlimited as far as I know. Even a $97 starter account, you can have unlimited site hosting as it stands right now, as far as I know.
Cool. Well, yeah, let's wrap it up before your battery dies, and we can cover anything next week if we missed it.
Right on. You guys can see me somewhat now, huh?
Yeah.
So the lighting changed. Right on. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate everybody being here. We do have a Build with Bradley meeting tomorrow, so if anybody's in the mastermind, please join that. Otherwise,